welcome back to Milton Mo Junction. This is going to be the November update, but I guess it's probably going to be more about creating or continuing on with building the heritage yard for my steam engines. So obviously you can see that I've done a little bit more work. I've built a ramp up this side to feed the coaling stage, and I've decided to put a side piece on which will be pretty much follow the line of the ground work on the other side of it. I'll probably paint this brown to match these bits here, and I've cut the hole for the turntable, so everything now has got to work around that. It's quite a tight fit, so that's quite nice. And I'll just continue with track laying. As I say, I've done the first part, which is the ramp. It's quite a steep ramp because it's a short distance, but it'll probably be a static display of a small engine and a couple of coal wagons, but I don't know yet. See whether an engine can actually get up it. I don't know what it would actually be, 1 in 16 or something like that, I guess, but we'll see. Anyway, I shall continue working and show you the progress. I've continued with the steam heritage yard and pretty much laid all the track now. The furthest track where it goes behind the engine shed, that's still got to continue a bit and curve round the corner a little bit, but that's not particularly important, so I'll do that later. So what we have here, we have a coaling shed or a coaling tower, which I promptly dropped off here and broke all the ladder, but I'll get around that because I think I'll put the banking up higher so it doesn't need all the ladder and all the handrails, so I'll sort that out somehow. And here on this second track I've got to put an ash pit, so I'll do that. Obviously there's a small temporary station or ramp, whatever you want to call it, so that people viewing the yard can get aboard a train, a carriage, to have a look in the carriage or perhaps go for a short ride. And there's the turntable, of course, and the engine shed. And also I have somewhere I think I'll put that signal box because I like the look of it and can't think of anywhere else to use it. And there's also a goods shed that I've built up. It's an old Pico one I had on an old layout, and I thought I'd use that. I was thinking of putting a station there, but thinking about it, it probably wouldn't have been right to have had a station because there's 2 other stations very close by, so I'm doing it as an old rundown goods shed, which the line is now cut off but used to join onto the main line, and the goods shed will now be turned into a touristy area where there'll be perhaps the building part will now be a gift shop or a cafe. I can have some tables on the floor there to for people to have their cups of tea, etc. And the whole idea is the entrance will be somewhere here, and they can wander around the whole yard. It won't be, I'll probably put it as cinders, so it'll be pretty level with the rails, and generally an area where everyone just walks around and goes where they want to go. There'll be a back scene along the far edge here and at the back, and that's pretty much to not only give it a back scene but also to stop anything falling off. And here, as I've already said, this will be as it is. That will just be land height and open, so that from this view, from the control point, you can see in it. So I shall continue and show you what else I've done later. Carrying on with the work with the heritage yard, I decided to put an ash pit in. I went to Didcot Heritage Railway and had a look at what they've got, because they've got a setup similar to this with this type of coaling tower, the type I'm using. And what I noticed, they had an ash pit pretty much in this position, feeding up to the loading of coal, and it was this type. I'm not sure if you can see that on there, which basically just meant that, forget the wings because they had to stop it falling through the hole, but basically it's just a very shallow trough that goes below the track. Obviously the track then runs either side. This will be covered by concrete, looking paper by the way. So the track will run along the edge, both edges, no sleepers, and the ash just goes down there. That was one idea, and as I say, that's fairly realistic for what is at Didcot. But I also like the idea of making it a bit more a bit bolder, as it were, and I've got the room. So what I thought I would do was to try and make a bigger style pit. I have seen pictures, I haven't actually seen a real one, but I have seen pictures of this sort of idea. So it's just, actually it's a larger version of what Graham Forson did on the lakeside. So I've sort of built it, it's a little bit shallower than Graham's, and it's longer obviously, so I've got a much shallower ramp there. This will do pretty much the same thing. It will sit something like that. It will be cut out so that the wings rest on the top, with card to represent concrete either sides. These will be the tracks where the tracks run over, and do that. I still haven't 100% made up my mind which version to use, but I'm edging on the way of the bigger one, just basically because it gives a bit more interest rather than the narrow slot. But I'll have a think about it, and whichever one I use, I'll cut the baseboard and slot it in. So see you in a minute. Well, as you can see, I decided to go for the larger version. I just think it looks a bit more showy and a bit more prominent, so that's the one I went for. I may well use the other one somewhere over in front of the engine shed, or at least cut it in half, and perhaps even use both of them in front of the engine shed. But for the meantime, I'm just doing this. As you can see, I've put the first layer of cardboard in. That just brings it up to the height of the sleepers, and now you can see what I meant about the wings just holding it in position. And they will all be covered, as will this first layer of cardboard, with another layer of cardboard that will be the finished concrete, if you like. So that's how it is at the moment. So I'll carry on, and I'll do the rest of the concrete on top of that. I should just add how I made the sand pit, I guess. Obviously, as you can see, it's all made from plastic card, so I made the main unit with plastic card, a box sort of shape. Then I put brick paper around the outside to give it a brick wall, and the base I just painted concrete. I made pillars out of pieces of wood and brick papered those as well. The runners across are little pieces of wood which I've painted, and will ash when I get it all in position, to make them look as if there's some ash on top of the wood. The ash itself I made originally to give it bulk. I put some old grit or ballast that I wasn't using, down as piles, and glued that down in the normal way of ballast, sprayed it, and then a mixture of 50% PVA and water. And then on top of that I've sprinkled ash out of a wood burner, which I've sieved and made it nice and fine. So I've kept that, I've had that for quite a while, a bag of that, and I use it for paths and things like that, but of course that came in useful to make little piles of ash. So it is actually real ash, although be it wood ash. So that's how I made that. As you can see, I've done a bit more work on the ash pit area. I've concreted it, or represented concrete with card. Obviously that's still got to be weathered and perhaps some join lines put in. I've put a wall up to hold back the embankment, which I've yet to build, so that'll be the next jobs to do. The weathering of the concrete I'll do it probably at the same time as I weather and ballast the track, so I may well wait until I've done all the track, but I think that's probably enough for this particular video, so I'll leave it there. I'll just add a bit on the end to show what I'm thinking of doing in the future, perhaps when I finish the heritage yard. So I'll let you see that bit now. I've been sitting up here thinking about this end. There's lots of it I'm not happy with. I've got to rearrange it anyway because I've now sold the Fleischmann turntable, and so I need to put in an AMD one at some stage, and it's going to be a different size because I may well buy the extra base so you can lift it out without disturbing the track, because there'll be so much track that if there is a problem with it, it'll be better to do that, and that's a completely different shape. There's also lots of other bits and pieces I'm not happy with over here, so what I'm thinking is of having all this up and pretty much starting again. I'm thinking of changing the direction of the outer two tracks. It's probably a bit hard to explain, that come round here, but making them much wider, going out round the back there more, and the inner pair also making those a lot wider and out the back. I'm not happy with the helix to go down to the fiddle yard, so I'm going to think of a different way of getting down to that, even if it's gradually dropping a track down the whole circuit of the loft. But I'll explain a little bit more, but these are just a few of the things I'm thinking of. The raised track, I'm thinking I may well just make that a dead end up here, hidden dead end, so long enough to store two HST trains out the way, a little bit more storage, and I'll be able to see them at that end, because I'll leave the station there but it won't actually go anywhere. It'll just be a storage area, so I can see the front of the trains when they get to the right position to store them, so they may well sit in the station for quite a while. Coming round to here, doing away with the raised bridge, I think it just looks a bit too crowded over this area here with the canal, river, whatever you want to call it. So do away with the raised suspension bridge completely, and in fact, instead of this loop you can see in the distance curling back round, I was thinking of just bringing it round straight along here, along the back, and widening the back bridge so it takes 3 tracks. That's a fairly easy job to do. So there'll be 3 tracks going along there, and then it just goes along the back, and where it was raised on those runners there, I'll just have it inclining back up and meeting in the middle around here somewhere, so it's a bit too difficult to get at the raised bit round the back here. It's all underneath this unit here, so I'll just have it go up to about 1.5 inches height here, and then back down here till it gets level again. So do away with all that. Excuse me. That'll make it a lot simpler. It'll make this area a lot simpler, and I can put some more scenery in here rather than all track. And it also gives with the tracks being pushed back to the corner, it will give a bigger area for the TMD, and perhaps a new position for the turntable. But I haven't really looked at any planning of that. That's just what's going through my head at the moment. I know it's a lot of work, but it'll make smoother running, I think, and it's just something else to do. So I'll explain that a bit later, but that's what my intentions are at some stage. So as I always say, when people are planning layouts, they always change. However carefully you plan it, something changes and you want to do something different, or when you actually run the trains, they don't run as smoothly as you'd like. So that's what I intend to do. So I'll show you the progress in the future, but there's no rush. I'll continue with the heritage yards for the moment. I might well finish that project before I start this one. It gives me a bit more time to plan as well, so I can be doing the planning while I'm doing the scenery part of the heritage yard. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you've got any comments, please feel free to do so. And well, that's about it really, I guess. Subscribe, I guess, if you wish. But thanks for watching. Bye for now.